Hello. Sam, are you there? Hello. Are you there, Sam?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, let's see if we can't get John on here. And see if this time we get everybody together. All right. All right, let's see something. All right, Lucy, can you hear us now?
Yes, sir.
Now good. So we can't get all the call. Everybody here now?
I'm here.
I'm here.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Yes,
Cool.
Hey, Lucy. Hey, first of all, Lucy, congratulations on the whole cancer thing, man. That's definitely a big battle.
Thank you, and thank you for that message. It really was very encouraging, and it really helped me get through it. So thank you so much for taking the time to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Now, John, it's gonna be we're gonna ask some questions. I'm gonna start out with a little intro. Oh, well, first, yeah. Well, okay. Well, right now we're just gonna get into it, but I have to state that this is a pre-recorded call on the California law.
Okay, yeah, no worries. Hey, let me just jump far so it's a little quieter, so we can talk. Outside, so hold on a second. And all right, can you guys hear me now?
Oh, a lot better. Okay. All right. Well, here I go with my spiel. Welcome and welcome. Lucy, did you just do something?
No, I haven't done anything.
Okay, welcome and good evening, everyone. I'm your host, James Whitfield, here at Our Turn Social Media Network Radio, via blogtalkradio.com. And I'm joined today with my co-host, Sam, a.k.a. Lucy Bones. And we have Mr. John Nicholson on the line. But before we begin, we apologize in advance that due to some unforeseen last-minute scheduling issues, this interview, I got to redo this. So before we begin, we apologize in advance. Due to some unforeseen last-minute scheduling issues, this interview has been pre-recorded, for which we apologize. And, John, are you okay with being recorded?
100%.
All right, thank you. All right, Sam, it's on you now.
Today, here at Our Turn Social Media Network Radio, OTSMN Radio, we will be speaking with Mr. John Nicholson, the star of the Investigation Discovery Channel's Murder Chose Me, where he portrayed retired Detective Rod Demery. This interview was pre-recorded.
Okay, John.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about what it was like to finally get that call for the lead role in Murder Chose.
Man, well, let me tell you, bro. So, you know, the road for acting is bumpy, to say the least. You know, you audition for a lot of stuff. You put yourself out there for a lot of stuff, and mostly you hear no's, or even worse, you don't hear anything. And so there are times where, you know, I'm sure every actor has faced it, where it just gets really frustrating, and you think, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I think I want to go, and I'm done with acting. And like literally, that was exactly what happened. The day that I got the phone call from my manager at the time to tell me that I had booked the show, I had been trying to set up an interview to get like a regular corporate job again, and so I was trying to set up this Zoom call that day so I could talk with the recruiter. And as I'm trying to do the Zoom call, my manager keeps calling, and I keep sending her the voicemail because I'm thinking she's calling me about some nonsense, right? And so I'm trying to hook up with the Zoom guy on Zoom to do this call with this recruiter, and for whatever reason, he and I never were able to connect. I couldn't get the meeting code to work, and I tried calling his cell phone, and he didn't answer. And I'm thinking, man, I don't want this dude to think that I'm flaking on him because I really want this job. And in the meantime, my manager still keeps steady calling, and I keep sending her the voicemail. So finally, I give up trying to connect with the recruiter. And I'm just sitting, I remember sitting at my desk thinking, man, you know, life, this is just so bad. I don't even want to do this anymore. And now I can't even get another job. And at that moment, my manager called again. And I knew, you know, she had been telling me, John, you got to get new headshots or something. And I just wasn't even trying to hear it. So I was reluctant to take her call, but I did. And so I get her on the line, and she's like, hey, I say, hey, what's going on? She says, are you sitting down? Because I got some bad news for you. And I'm thinking, oh, man, this is just day. This can't get any worse. And then, of course, she goes on to tell me, you know, that show, you booked it. And, like, literally, like, it just changed everything, right? Because when I say I was at the precipice of, like, I'm done. Like, but, you know, that taught me such a valuable life lesson, right? Because I realized that that's it. When you are at your very end, right, whether you're, like, working out and you're running or you work and you're like, you feel like you can't do another rep or you can't do another step, it's that other step, right, where what you really want is on the other side of don't giving up.
Yeah.
Right. But I appreciate that, man. You know, it's like I don't know how I would have handled it, you know, but it seemed like you did very well and you bounced back and the show was a success, you know. So, John, what we're going to do is we're going to turn the rest of the questioning over to Sam, Lucy Bones, and let her hear you.
Well, thanks, James. Thanks, James. Well, you know, I'm going to go a little bit out of order with our script a little bit here, and I want to back up and talk about All My Children and General Hospital and how those anticipation and your getting those roles was a little bit different for you, or even if it was a little bit different for you than getting The Murder Chose Me.
Yeah, well, it was, listen, you know, and going back, I remember the day that I booked the General Hospital role, right? Like, I had auditioned for General Hospital like months before, like 6-7 months before, and never heard anything. And then I just get a phone call saying, you've been booked on the show for like 3 or 4 days. And I remember looking at the phone like, you got to be kidding me. You can't be talking to me. I haven't auditioned. And so, you know, it was so exciting. And I was like, so to be and, you know, just be there with all the other stars from the regular people on the show. And it made, and it made me realize, like, yeah, you know, I could do this. Because I think part of it is like, if either one of you have ever played sports, like I played basketball growing up, right? And so you might think you're good, but you never really know if you're good until you step on the court with really good players. And then all of a sudden, you know pretty quickly if you're on the same competition level as them or not. And so being on the sets of General Hospital and All My Children, even though, you know, I was a guest star, I had a co-star role, and I wasn't a series regular, but it gave me the confidence to know, okay, cool, you know what, I'm only here for a couple of days, but I belong here just like everybody else does. And you know, and sometimes it's just that confidence. They're like, okay, I can, you know, there's good players here, but I could ball too, you know. And so I think that's all part of the process of, like, everybody moves to LA and thinks, you know, they want to become this acting star overnight. And the reality of it is it's like 7 to 10 or 12 years to become an overnight success. And in those years, what happens in those years are you have your will challenged and tested because, you know, you're going to hear no a lot. And are you going to stick it out, or are you going to pack up and go back to your house? You're going to have opportunities to work and be around good actors, and you'll have a chance to test your talent up against actors that are good. And, like, you know, if you perform at that level, then it gives you the confidence to say, yeah, I know I belong here. So the next audition you go to, it takes a lot of the anxiety out, because you're like, listen, I'm as good as anybody else. You know, I just need the right opportunity.
Right.
Sounds like it's a huge confidence builder.
100%. Because it really is. Because if you think about it, right, there's very few other careers where, you know, the premise is you're going to hear no 90 or 95% of the time, right? Like anything else in life, if you're trying to be a nurse and you hear no 95% of the time, maybe, you know, you might start to think nursing might not be for you, right? Because 95% of the people who start out to be nurses probably end up, you know, being nurses, not the other way around, where only 5% of them do or die or whatever. But you hear no so much that you have to learn to adapt to it pretty quick, because otherwise your ego suffers terribly, because you're gonna hear no most of the time.
Yeah, John, I know that. You know, that's what I came home with a law degree and couldn't get a job as a lawyer in the law field. So after years of trying, I just got tired and learned filmmaking. You know,
right.
Started my nonprofit, you know, and things just kind of went from there. But I know how that goes. You know, to keep hearing no, and you just so you have to change up or you know, or stick it out. You know. But let's get back on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to say that it just really, it tests how much do you really want it, right? Because everybody says they want it, but not everybody really wants it.
Yeah, and I heard it's really hard to break through, like, that elitist mindset of Hollywood. I mean, Hollywood has this, like, iron gate for a lot of people that I've heard gone out there and attempted to get roles and want to be a famous actor or actress or performer, and really they say it's like an iron curtain around that society.
You know, I don't know if it's an iron curtain as much as it is, listen, there's a lot of damn talented people out here, right? Like, you'll see, you know, I've been in acting class with students that, you know, you guys have never seen on television or maybe seen briefly, and they're brilliant. They've just never had the right opportunities, right? Like, because it's, you know, you go to an audition and all of a sudden there's 20 guys in there that look very similar to you, because everybody fits the same general description of what they're looking for. And so, you know, out of those 20 guys, 15 of them might be brilliantly talented. So when you book it out here, right, 9 times out of 10, you've paid your dues and you're really good. Because if not, you wouldn't be in the room and you would have given up a long time ago. And I guess that's where the perseverance part comes in, right? Because it is hard. Like, if it wasn't hard, everybody would do it, right? Or anybody could do it. But I'm sure the same could be said about the NBA or the NFL. Or, you know, it's hard. And, you know, the higher up you go, the more talented people you're competing against. Right.
Now, I want to bring up this YouTube video. It was only 3.5 minutes about long. It was a Courage Films, and Every Actor is Afraid of This by John Nicholson.
Right.
You showed an emotional side to yourself that, you know, I don't think I've necessarily seen in that way, and you were extremely vulnerable. Are you comfortable in that vulnerable space for roles? Do you draw on personal, or do you detach and absorb the character? Like, how does that work for you?
Yeah, so I'm a method actor, and so for me, everything is, I try to draw everything from a personal experience that I've had, if I have one available. You know, I always tell my son is, you know, take the short way there. And so if it's something that you felt that's similar to what your character is going through, you can use that. And I think the courage part for actors in general is that you have to be willing to like literally pull your chest open, man, and like let the audience see your heart beating, right? Because that's what they're paying to see. They don't want to see someone fake it. If your character's mom died or, you know, something tragic happened, they don't want to see an actor or an actress pretend like they're heartbroken, because like all of us, we sense fake, right? And we can see when someone is not really experiencing something. But when Viola Davis is going through it, she's really going through it, right? She's not pretending to be sad. Viola Davis is like, I'm showing you, and that's why the audience can relate so much, because you can relate to the real emotions that someone is doing. And so for me, I really try to strive to like, I want the audience to experience what my character feels emotionally, whatever, you know, he's going through, happiness, sad, whatever. And I think personal experiences just it doesn't even have to be the exact same thing, because maybe, you know, your character's son died or daughter died, but, you know, for me, it's my mom died. And so, you know, I'm using a similar emotional experience. The audience sees it as this guy is just going through something, but what I'm actually experiencing may not be exactly what happened to the character, but emotionally, it's pretty much the same thing. And so I always try to draw on personal experience when available.
That's incredible. Mm-hmm. Now, I know you worked really closely with Detective Demery to prepare yourself with the role. We all know this, especially if we follow you on Facebook and Insta and everywhere else, that how difficult, or was it even difficult, for you to play a role where there was a narrator?
You know, it wasn't, because, like, I remember when the day I got hired, I called the executive producer back, and I was like, listen, can you give me Rod's number, because I want to talk to him. And they were I think they were a little surprised by that. But as they got to know me, they realized that's who John is. And I wanted to hear his voice. I wanted to hear how he talked. And I wanted to get, you know, some immediate insight into, you know, his personality. And then he and I had the opportunity. We met in Knoxville, Tennessee. We went out to dinner, and like we sat there and we talked. And that first night, we sat there for like 3 hours or 4 hours. Dinner was over, and we just sat there kicking it, and like we were just cool from the door. And you know, we just have very similar personalities, kind of similar sense of humor, similar kind of outlook on life. And so I think all of that helped make it, you know, made it click.
That's awesome.
Sounds like it was meant to be, actually, you know, with the description of the Zoom job and how everything just clicked with Detective Demery. It really sounds like it was a role made for you.
It did, you know. I felt, and oddly enough, like, so I learned this after the fact. When I went in, and here's an interesting tidbit about the audition. So I get this audition, and it's in New York, and I'm in LA, right? And so they were saying, you know, they were seeing actors in person in New York at Jupiter Entertainment's office. But if you couldn't come to New York, you could send in a videotape. And here I am, you know, like, this is last minute. Like, a last minute ticket to New York was going to be like $700 or $800 that I really didn't have. And I remember sitting there debating, like, man, should I just make this tape and send it to him, which, you know, is going to cost me like $15 or $20, or do I spend this money I don't have to take this flight? And then, you know, and at the last minute, I thought, you know what, I want this so bad, I'm gonna risk this. And I spent the $700 I didn't have, and I bought the ticket, and I flew to New York. And when I walked in the room, everyone stopped. Right? Like, everyone stopped, and they were staring at me. This was like maybe 5-10 seconds goes by, and I'm wondering, like, what the hell did I do wrong? Like, but what I found out later is they said that when I walked in, that I reminded them so much of Rod that it kind of stopped them in there. It kind of made them stop, and you know, and so to some degree, maybe that was a role that just, you know, the universe put that one there for me.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
think I remember you saying something and posting some things about like your work with law enforcement as you prepared for the role. So what was that like for you?
So what I did is I contacted LAPD, and they have a whole department because of the amount of actors that are here in LA. So they will pair you up with a training, normally like a training sergeant or something, and you'll do a ride along with them. And so they ended up hooking me up with this officer. His name's Scotty Mullen. He was a great dude. He's the one who Jake Gyllenhaal spent all this time with preparing for that movie End of Watch. So he was real familiar. He was real familiar with, what actors do. And so, like, to be able to sit in that car with them, and we were like, I was with them, I want to say, like 2 or 3 weeks. And the area they cover is in the Watts section of California, right? So, it's pretty active in terms of calls and stuff they get. And to just be with them, but it wasn't only just how they talked and what kind of calls they were going on, but it was the camaraderie, right, between the police officers. And like there's no way to approximate that, because if I hadn't spent that time, any portrayal of a police officer would have been kind of like based on what I saw on television or, what you see in the movie, because you've never seen what it's like. I've seen police officers. I grew up in a tough neighborhood. I always saw police officers from the other side. And so to be able to spend that time with them in the car, going on radio calls, show up at a house, there's dead body there. It's like there was no way to prepare for that without actually being able to do that.
Wow, that's so cool that they have an entire department that really allows people in your field to experience it so they can accurately portray law enforcement on TV.
Yeah, and to me that was like I couldn't do it because if you don't get that insight, everything you're doing is mimicking or kind of like pretending, because you don't really know what cops are like. You don't really know how they are. You don't know what it feels like when they turn on that light and you're racing through the streets at 75 miles an hour, blowing through red lights, and I'm thinking I'm going to die. And the adrenaline that's pumping as you go through it, like there's no way to know what that feels like unless you can actually do it.
Yeah, it sounds like it would almost be very surface level if you didn't have that experience.
100%, because you would, like I said, you would just be going off of like what you see on, what you see on television, as opposed to being able to like experience that, internalize it, and then you're able to like make that part of your character, but from a real place.
Now, I know Detective Demery was a detective in Shreveport, Louisiana, right? Mm-hmm. So what made the location go to Knoxville, Tennessee? There's 2 reasons. Yeah. One is because Jupiter Entertainment, which is a production company, their corporate office is in Knoxville, and they have Jupiter does a ton of shows for ID. Like most of the hot shows on ID are usually Jupiter shows. And so because they shoot there so much, they have a great relationship with the Knoxville Police Department. So they get access to, if they need, because the other thing that a lot of people might not know is that every uniformed police officer you see on Murder Shows Me is actually a member of the Knoxville Police Department. So wow. So those are all, they're all real officers. The only people who are actors are like the actors that are like plainclothes detectives or whatever. But any police officer you see in a uniform on Murder Shows Me is an actual member of law enforcement. So think about the benefit of that, right? So you have like having free technical advisors on set, because anytime we were going to shoot something, the director, could turn to one of the officers and say, what would you guys do in this situation? Or like, so that it lends to the authenticity of whatever we're doing, because you've got the real cops who do this every day for a living right there to tell you, oh, no, we wouldn't do that, or we'd approach the house like this. And, again, that stuff, like being able to be around real police officers and, like, I was able to pick their brains and ask them questions was invaluable. Yeah, and it sounds like it was – go ahead, James. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying it just sounds like it. Sounds like it was a very good learning experience, for you to perfect your craft and to play your role greatly.
Now, James has pulled a quote from Detective Demery's summation of the cancellation of the popular show.
Okay.
Are you okay with me quoting it?
Oh, yeah, please, for sure.
Okay. He says, I gotta say, it wasn't going to last forever. There's a finite amount of cases, and I ran out of cases. I appreciate the love, and I'm still amazed that my life and career were even considered for public consumption. Two incredible things came of the project. One, my mother, an anonymous 21-year-old girl who otherwise would have been forgotten, had her story of domestic violence and murder told all over the world, told by her baby boy. Two, the stories of victims in a small corner of the world, Shreveport, Louisiana, were mourned for and acknowledged in 120 countries around the world. Thank you all for supporting not only me, but all that contributed in the show's tremendous success. My thanks and prayers for continued courage and protection of those still policing. Godspeed to those lost in the line of duty.
That sounds so much like Rod. If you know him, that sounds so much like him. Like I could have heard that quote and you wouldn't have told me who said it, and I would have known that was something Rod would have said.
Now, I know you guys a lot alike. Is there anything in there that you might have said different, or any kind of sentiment that you might add to it?
No, because I think one of the things that, doing one of the last episode of season 1 was the story about where Rod investigated his mom's murder, who had literally gone unsolved from 20 or 30 or 40 years earlier. He went back in and looked at the case and was able to figure out exactly what happened. And he's right. He was able to bring his mom's story of domestic violence to people all around the world. And there was so many phone calls, and not phone calls, but tweets and messages and Instagram messages and Facebook messages I got from fans all over the world that, they could totally relate. Someone they knew was a victim of domestic violence, and that case was never solved. And so they really had an opportunity, they had an opportunity to be able to feel camaraderie with Rod because he knows what they went through, right? He has an understanding about what they went through. And the same goes for the victims. I had a chance to meet a couple of the actual people who the stories were about. And it was amazing. This woman's, first episode of season 1, this 18-year-old pregnant girl was murdered. And she, I think she was 6 or 7 months pregnant. And I actually had a chance to meet her actual mother. And, just seeing her and understanding the grief and the grieving that she went through during that time, it made it all so much more real.
Now, John, John, isn't that their first segment? Isn't that the young girl? Wasn't she pregnant or something?
Yeah, she was. She was 6 or 7 months pregnant, and she was murdered by her boyfriend and left in a pond.
Right. I remember that. That was the very first show, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And I know you've also made yourself very accessible to fans, especially on Facebook. I remember reading several posts from people who said, "Oh, my sister's episode is on tonight," or so-and-so's episode, "Oh, that involves my family." And the outpouring of support from those who follow the program just showered love on the victims' families. And I found that very almost comforting in a way.
Yeah, it's amazing, and we have there's a fan page on Facebook for Murder Chose Me fan page, and there's a number of family members of victims that, we were highlighted on our show, and they're part of the fan page, and they have been among the most supportive people about, because I really think the production company went out of their way to portray their stories of what happened in a very humanistic way, in a way that like
absolutely
showed, you know, what that family really went through. Because when someone's murdered, it changes. I mean, when someone dies, in general, it changes everything. But when someone is murdered, you know, senselessly, it changes those family members forever, and they're
right.
never, you know, they're never the same.
No.
Yes, it does.
So I wonder how you process the cancellation of the show. if you knew ahead of time it was coming, and the ratings were extremely good, and
yes.
you know, this is James's line. It's like taking a line out of the comedy movie Major Payne. But John, there's no more bad guys left. You killed them all. So just as you and Detective Demery solved all of his unsolved murder cases in his caseload, you know, it kind of came to that climax of closing the show down as well.
Well, it's two things. One, I don't think it was so much that Rod actually ran out of cases. It's just that the network has pretty specific criteria about what kind of cases they would show. So he had a bunch of cases, not necessarily cases that fit within the framework of what they wanted to show. So and I think
right.
that's where the dilemma came out, because he definitely had other cases. It's just not cases that fit into what the network was, their criteria is. As far as finding out, no, I found out the day I found out is the day I posted on social media and said, you know, I just found out. So, you know, it's like anything else, right? Like anybody who's ever had a job and then you find out that, you know, your company went out of business or you're getting laid off, it ain't a great feeling. I mean, you know, and you go through some emotional, you know, angst, right? Because first of all, most actors I know, a lot of them are out of work. And so, you know, to be able to say, you know, you've been a working actor for 3 years on a show, it feels good. So, you know, it was disappointing, right? But I also understand that it's a business, right? And then I also recognize no matter how long the show went on, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, 7 seasons, every show that has ever come on TV goes off TV, right? Like at some point, the show does get canceled. Yeah, MASH, Friends, doesn't matter. At some point, there is like that final episode, and whenever that final episode comes, it probably never feels good because you end up spending, and I spent so much time working with the production crew and the director and the producers, and, you know, just it was like they had become extensions of my family. And, you know, I had started like, you know, this kind of second life because half the year I was spending in Knoxville shooting. So, you know, and then all of a sudden that's just gone. And I think, you know, you take some moments to reflect. And for me, I decided that what I'm going to do, I'm going to focus on the fact that it was an amazing opportunity. And I had an unbelievable time doing it. I met a bunch of amazing people. I came in contact with people that I would have never had a chance to. I had an opportunity to be blessed enough to have my work seen around the world, right? There were people in countries that I didn't even know the show was in, and I'm getting text messages from, you know, Cote d'Ivoire in Africa or, you know, Kenya, Saudi Arabia, and they're like, yo, I'm a fan of your show. So I'm like, even though it got canceled, far and away, it was an absolute blessing, and I'm better and thankful for it. And you know, as my mom would tell me, you know, like literally, it sounds a little corny, but it's 100% true. You know, doors close and doors open, right? And so one door closes, and that opens up the possibility for other stuff.
That is true.
Is there still a Murder Chose Me cruise in the mix?
There was one that was supposed to be coming up in 2021 until, of course, the whole COVID-19 thing happened, and the cruise industry has kind of gone out the window. So I don't know how that's going, but there was absolutely a Murder Chose Me cruise. I guess it was along with like Murder Chose Me and Homicide Hunter and one of the other shows, and we were all gonna do this cruise together. So fans could come on and, you know, hang out with me and Joe Kenda and Rod and but I don't know. That whole thing has been kind of thrown up in the air just with, the uncertainty of COVID-19.
Now, speaking of COVID-19, how has it changed? I know a lot of, the reality shows, the big reality shows, and a lot of other shows have stopped production. Everybody's on furlough. How do you think it's changed the craft, if any?
Well, I think this is the big unknown. I don't think anyone really knows, right? Because you can have the camera person or the sound person with face mask on, but how do you? Actors can't do that because the whole thing is intimacy and being close and talking with someone else. So you can't really do that. So I think I know the people at SAG, Screen Actors Guild, are trying to figure out what protocols are going to be safe for people to work on, because even something as simple as saying, okay, well, we'll test everyone when they show up to set, right, and take everyone's temperature or whatever. Okay, cool. 35% of people are asymptomatic, so even by giving them a temperature test, you're still not going to catch everyone. And then once people leave set and go home, now they have an opportunity to possibly get infected, and the next day they come back to work, they might be infected. Or sometimes there's a lag time between infection and when people are symptomatic. So I don't know how that is all going to work out until a vaccine comes out, or I just don't know. I know one of the things that I heard at Tyler Perry Studios, he has this whole compound in Atlanta where I guess there's living quarters and everything. So for his shows, I've heard what they're doing is they're bringing the actors in, they're testing everybody once they get there, and then everyone has to stay in the compound until the shoot is done. And you have your meals there, you sleep, right, and then after the shooting is done, then you go home, and that lessens the chance of people being able to go back to their hotel and go out to dinner and get infected and then come back the next day. And so I don't know that every production can do that. Clearly they probably can't. But that's at least one of the solutions that's going on. But ultimately, I don't think we know. I think that's the big unknown.
Yep.
Wow. That's really intense. And, I respect that opportunity Mr. Perry has for his productions, because he's giving people a chance in all this mess to still eat, so and still make some money. So that's incredible, because it's hard to do right now. I know. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say because LA has been shut down for months.
Yeah. And I know you were starting to work on some other projects, because you were kind of dropping little hints on Facebook about some other things you were getting into. Are you able to comment or give us little clues on what might be coming up for you?
Well, I don't even know where things are now, but one of my friends, Amanda Henn, is a producer. She owns Mother Hen Productions, and so she and I had been talking about collaborating on a couple of different projects, and one of them was a pilot, a television series pilot, kind of loosely based off of the relationship I have with my son. And I was really excited. I was really, really, really excited about the possibility of doing that. And so that whole thing has kind of been put on hold, and I'm hoping that once all the smoke clears, we could kind of get back to working on that. And then there was another project that a film that she's producing, and she had offered she's going to shoot in Atlanta, and she had offered roles to both my son Phoenix and I, and so we were excited because the movie was supposed to start shooting in the spring, and of course, obviously, COVID-19 that went out the window, so I don't know what the status of that is going to be. So, there were some things that I was really looking forward to, especially being able to work on the project with my son, and those things just all kind of got on hold. But who knows, maybe sometimes not getting what you think you want at the time is the best blessing of all, because you don't really know, how things are going to turn out. Right.
I really hope that those get back on track as soon as COVID provides an opportunity to do that, because I definitely would watch it. It sounds very interesting to me.
You guys